Mortgages are more affordable than renting. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee. I want to have a look at this article from Mortgage Business where Greater Southern Bank is saying that mortgages are cheaper than renting. Now before we look at this, I want to, make sure, just look at some of the rental prices at the moment because I wonder if they're accounting for all the other hidden costs in owning a property. You've got your rates, you've got your water bills that you have to pay. Often the landlord pays that. You've got your maintenance of the property. And I know I'm doing a lot of maintenance on my property now. It adds up. Isn't the rule of thumb like 5% of the value every year you need to spend just on maintaining the property? So, these things will add up and help you if you're in a region where you have to pay land tax. That's even worse. So I thought we'd start off by just looking at what we can get for 3-bedders in Brisbane. Why is that called Frog's Hollow anyway? For 3-bedders in Brisbane, what the rent actually is and compare it to the mortgage. So you've got the inner city here and you've got the expensive band around here. Now this is where I think I lived on Kangaroo Point back in my student days. We lived across the road from Finlayson's. Where was it? There we go. So we had a hardware place right across the road from us. We were in here. I'd hate to know how much that little one-bedroom place is worth now. So let's see what rents are like. So we've put 3 bedrooms. You know what? I'll change that down to 2 beds because that's what we had as a student. So here you go. You can get a unit for $380 in Dutton Park. I mean, it does the job. Nothing wrong with it. So that's fine, honestly. It's not somewhere where you'd want to, live your whole life, I imagine. But nothing wrong with it. It's a good little kitchen. So there you go, $380. We can get a little 2-bedder there. Let's see what else we can get. What about down here? Okay, now you're getting more expensive. $700 a week. Okay, $700 a week. Nicer fit out, bigger views. So yeah. You're paying for the luxury. So, there you go. 3-bed. Why is that blurry anyway? 3-bed. Pretty standard design. Nice outdoor living. You'll be living out there most of the time. But there we go. So let's see why they're saying mortgages are cheaper. So you can get something for $380 a week. That's not too bad. You're going to struggle to get a decent-sized mortgage for that amount of money. Probably borrowing $400,000 for that, and that's going to get even less. So let's keep going. Mortgages more affordable than renting. Great Southern Bank. It also depends on the area. I'm comparing it to a little, student unit, low cost place in the middle of Brisbane compared to some of the more expensive places. But we'll see. The majority of Australians renting could be paying more than those with property loans, according to a new survey released by the non-major bank. According to the survey, which comprises 1,500 first-home buyers across Australia and was conducted over March to mid-April, more than two-thirds, 68% of respondents, said they were paying either less or the same amount in loan repayments than they previously were in rent. The results also noted that 42% of first-home buyers expressed that their repayments were in fact less with a mortgage than it was while they were renting. I'll have to think. I mean, our mortgage isn't very high and in the grand scheme of things. And I'm thinking how much rent we paid. We did the dodge. We rented out in a 2-bedroom house. We rented out the 2 rooms and we lived in the entry to get our rent down to like $50 each a week while running a business from the house. I had 4 staff working there. 2 people living in the house as well as 4 people living in the house because we were renting with 2 others. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to hustle to get started, guys. Come on. That's normal, isn't it? I'm not the only one that has done stuff like that. Let me know in the comments to make me feel good. So this was seen at its most distinctive in regional Australia, with 74% of respondents stating that their housing costs either decreased or stayed the same following their entry into the property market. And we've seen that with, I'll bring up this one here, with just regional New South Wales and Mobar, my favourite example of, look at how expensive houses got But rental prices also skyrocketed. You've got rental issues everywhere, so they all jumped in on property. For first home buyers based in the CBD, the figure was reportedly 60%. The survey also found that home ownership was predicted to be more expensive than it actually was, with 38% of first home buyers stating they expected their housing costs to be less following their property purchase. But how far deep into property ownership are these people? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Is it a couple of years? Have they actually encountered any issues with their building yet that requires significant maintenance? And that can throw a spanner in the works. So, but then again, maintenance, you can put it off. You can do it yourself. You can find a ways, until you get the money. Speaking of the survey's results, Great Southern Bank Chief Customer Officer Megan Keller commented that the trend of renting outweighing mortgage repayments is only likely to increase in the current rental market. According to SQM research, the average weekly rent in Australia for a dwelling, as of 28th of April, is $498, a yearly increase of 11.2%. Now, guys, this is one thing why we're not going to have the same calamitous crash as Ireland, because with regards to property prices, because the yields you're getting on these investment properties are still better than other guaranteed yields. In Ireland, it got to the point where people could make more money on government investments, on bonds, than you could on buying property. The yields just weren't there. We still have the yields. So I'm seeing people say property's going to fall 50%, property's going to fall 70%. I know the media jumped on it when the RBA did a modelling of it going down 40%, so they got a whole lot of attention. But we've got to think about it one step further out. If these investments can still make you a decent return, if you're still getting a better yield and you're getting the capital growth, and they're essentially government backed in this country, yeah, we're really going to get off this property gravy train anytime soon in Australia, guys. So we know one of the key challenges for many young buyers is saving for a deposit rather than the ongoing repayments. She said yes. Ms. Keller added that those who are still trying to save, it's worth considering what support you may be eligible under government schemes such as the First Home Guarantee and the federal opposition's recently announced Help to Buy. I've got to do a video on that. I don't have time this morning to go through some articles that are discussing that, but I'm not a fan of joint state ownership of houses. But it doesn't matter if I'm a fan of it. There's going to be young people that will jump at it. Some of them will, and I can't blame them for getting into housing. But while incentives like this do reduce the cost of entering the housing market for some, I think they generally push it up for others, they also face criticism. Last year, the National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation review concluded that the Coalition's First Home Loan Deposit Scheme, which has since been rebranded as the First Home Guarantee, mainly benefited those who were already on track to own their own home. Meanwhile, Greens leader Adam Band vocalised his disapproval of Labor's Help to Buy scheme while speaking to the ABC, suggesting that the measure will only benefit a small fraction of Australians and could raise property prices. Yeah, he's right. Look at that. I'm agreeing with the Greens. Anything can happen. Honestly, one thing to do, but this will also drive... Any intervention is going to drive up property prices. We need to increase supply. They need to reduce the red tape on property, get rid of all of the greenwashing bullshit out of it, make it all optional, make cheaper houses. But the problem is it costs so much to build, you've got to jump through many hoops. You're not going to build a cheap house. You want to build a bigger house so you get a greater ROI on it. Further recent data by Domain has pinned the average price of a house in the capital city at $1 million, sparking questions over exactly how many first-home buyers will be able to borrow to enter the housing market. In response to rising home prices, growing rent, as well as a surge of cost living, independent bodies have called for greater political action to increase the supply of affordable housing. This is the thing. I remember reading about some of these regional councils bitching and moaning that they've got housing issues, housing crises, but they get in the way of it. The Greens here, we've got our own Greens Brisbane councillor who was bitching and moaning about an Ipswich development, which would have put houses at about $500,000. First home buyer houses. In April, the think tank Committee for Sydney called for action to decrease the rate of investment property ownership in New South Wales capital, as well as further investment in social housing. The plea echoed those of Community Housing Industry Association earlier that month, which called for 7 actions to be taken by political parties. Yeah, okay. They want more and more social housing. I don't advocate for social housing. You want people to actually own where they're living. This is Australia. It's not Europe. That was that big point of difference. You could come here and build a life. Leave a legacy for your family. Anyway, let's have a talk about this one. So is renting cheaper, or is having a mortgage cheaper? I think at the moment, definitely mortgages are cheaper in many locations, particularly with the rents just going insane. So we'll have to wait and see until those additional costs of property ownership start to bite some people, but, you'll find a way to make it happen. But see, renting is still smart if you want to have the flexibility. I guess it depends in what stage of life that you're at, if you want to settle down and put your roots somewhere, or if you want to keep moving around. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on this one. Do you think renting is cheaper, or is having a mortgage more affordable? As always, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. Sign up using any of our referral links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband, or call us if you need architectural services. We do a lot of commercial, education, and resource sector work. Take care, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in that next episode of HeiseSays. Let's hope these new home buyers don't have any... Well, here's the thing. In a spec home, you can repair a lot of the damage. But if you're being a first home buyer in an apartment and something goes wrong, you can be screwed.